Sending your child off to the first day of school can be nerve-wracking, to say the least, especially if this is the first time that you've ever sent your child off to school. So I wanted to take time this week to put your mind at ease. I know that so many of us wonder, have I done enough? Is my kid ready? Did I really make the right choice? Should I send my child to school this year, or should we wait an extra year? My hope is to not only help preschool parents put their minds at ease, but also to support any parent who's just feeling a little anxious about the start of the year. Even if your little one isn't going into kindergarten, I think that there's some really important takeaways here because I'll be sharing my insights as an educator and what I know students really need to solidify in order to be fully prepared to be a successful student. These skills are skills that take years to develop and are ones that they'll continue to work on in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and beyond. So whether you're the parent of a preschooler or a child who's a little bit older, this episode is here to help put your mind at ease if you're feeling a little bit anxious about that transition into the new school year. If that's what you need more of in your life today, you're in the right place. Let's simplify things together. Now, I know that this is not necessarily only for parents of kindergartners, but I do want to open this episode with a few thoughts about what it's like sending your little one off to kindergarten, whether you've done it before or this is your first time. I just want to help reassure you that I don't think any parent is ever quite entirely confident of whether their child is really ready for kindergarten. I remember with one of my kids who are both right on the cusp of the age cutoff because of where their birthdays are in the fall. And I remember thinking, well, what should I do for each of them? Do I redshirt them and give them an extra year to grow and develop, or are they ready now? For one child, the right answer was they're ready now because they have the smarts. Even though I was a little apprehensive about, I don't know where they're going to fall socially. They're quiet, they're a little introverted. How's that going to play out in middle school? But I knew that if we waited an extra year, they'd be bored out of their minds trying to do kindergarten a year from then. So we went ahead and enrolled our 5-year-old into kindergarten. With the other child, it was very clear that they would benefit from more time and some extra targeted supports to help prepare them in getting ready during that time so that when they approached kindergarten, they had the best chance for their success as possible. And that was the right decision for them. And so I want to assure you that if you're questioning whether you've made the right choice, just know I've been there too. And I've seen plenty of other parents who have been there as well as an educator over the years. I know for a fact that this is not always a super clear decision. So I hope that as we go into this episode that you're able to distinguish what the right choice might be for you and your child, but then also what it is that either you could be working on in the time over the next year or two while they're in preschool, or the things you can support in the weeks leading up to the start of school. I think either way, this is going to be really helpful to you. And then if you have a child who's going into first or second grade, just know that a lot of these, again, are skills that they're going to keep solidifying. So you can definitely pull from this bank of ideas and adapt it in a way that you feel like is more appropriate for your child. But if it sticks out to you that they need to work on these skills, I think that's a win. I think identifying what your child needs and helping them build those skills is one of the best things you can do for them academically. And when I talk about what they need academically, we're talking about their success in the academic setting. And I think that this is the most important place for us to start this conversation. Your child does not need to come into kindergarten knowing how to count, knowing how to name their letters, knowing letter sounds, adding or subtracting, reading sentences or words. They don't have to be able to write their name or even spell it. I promise you, the entire curriculum of kindergarten assumes that the baseline is your child does not have any of those academic skills. They are going to be taught those skills in the kindergarten setting. So do not let your child's lack of academic knowledge be the reason that they don't go to school. I think that there are so many other qualities and characteristics of a child who's ready to begin kindergarten or who's going to be successful in the academic setting that we really need to focus in on and support in order to set them up for the greatest success possible, because these are the ways a ready learner solves the problems they're presented with. So I want to walk you through what these qualities look like in action, give you some examples, and then hopefully you have a good starting place. Now, I do have all of these ideas in a free checklist for you. So don't feel like you have to study this entire podcast. I've put plenty of ideas for you based on what your child needs into this checklist. You can go ahead and visit momlifehandbook.com/kindergarten to grab that checklist for free. And what I think is so important here is to remember your child doesn't have to have mastered any of these skills. These, again, are skills that they're going to work on in their primary years in the classroom. But if you feel like there's a particular area where they have certain outlier qualities that you want to support, this will really help you narrow in on what really is going to be important to leverage for them in the home environment. As the year goes on and the teacher gets to know them better, they'll also be able to help you identify what areas of academic support they might need. But for now, just focus on what the qualities of a successful learner are and pinpoint or target 2 or 3 of them. You do not have to sit here and have a child who's successful in all these skills because, again, they're going to be working on them. So don't stress about that. I would say that your bigger concern would be is if we're going through all these and you're not really sure that they have much of a foundation, then I would reach out to the school district and ask them what they do to assess your child's readiness and see what support you could get there. If they have a preschool teacher, you can always consult with them. I think it's important that we surround ourselves with experts who can really give us a closer look at our children in a way that maybe we don't have the expertise in. So don't hesitate to create that support system for yourself and for your child, because ultimately it's to their benefit. I really don't think that there's any shame in reaching out to those individuals. I know I pride myself in the circle I have of support for me and my children. I cannot possibly be an expert in all the things that I need to be an expert in order for my children to thrive. So don't view this as some reflection on you haven't done your part as a parent. If you have concerns and you're advocating for them and you're seeking out experts who can support you in filtering through whether these are things to be concerned about or whether you can put your mind at ease, like, I can't think of anything better that you could do for your children. So just know, you stamp of approval. I am here cheering you on. If you are hesitant and you're not certain if your child's ready, reach out to the people around you. They will help you and support you in coming to a decision that you ultimately can have peace of mind around. So let's break down your child's readiness into 4 key areas. The first is social-emotional readiness. This is where your child is able to build relationships with the adults in their lives as well as the children who they're in class with. We also want to see that they're learning how to navigate conflict and setbacks. Those social situations are really what drive the classroom and are especially important in the less structured times like recess. Also, in our second category is their self-help independence. We want to make sure that we are encouraging our children to be their best advocate, to recognize what they need, to have the skills to try to get it for themselves, or to have the confidence in asking someone for support in helping them get there. The third is academic. I know I said they're going to learn these skills in school. They will, I promise. The standards identify letter naming, letter sounds, putting them all together to decode or read or sound out words, to count to 100, to be able to do adding and subtracting up until 20. But what I mean here is that we want to make sure that we are fostering their love of learning. We want to see that they're able to ask questions and problem solve, because those are important as they're building those new academic skills. And believe it or not, the last one is physical gross motor skills. These are really important, not only on a fine motor level for handwriting, but also for focus when they're having to sit in the classroom for extended periods of time, or movement as they're playing on the playground and participating in physical education. So we want to make sure that they are ready to participate in the classroom environment physically. So let's take a few moments. We'll break down what each of these looks like. And then if one of these sticks out to you as something where you're like, maybe I want to spot correct this or support it more at home, go ahead and grab the checklist because I give you specific examples of what you could be doing to practice and support these at home. So I feel like that is really helpful so that you're not reinventing the wheel or second guessing yourself of what it is that you might work on. These will help really give you that foundational understanding of what you can be doing. All right, so let's start with social and emotional skills. I want to preface this by saying, please remember the part of the brain that controls our emotions is one of the last parts of the brain to fully develop. So truly, as our kids are entering into toddlerhood, all the way until the time they're 25, they are working on developing their social emotional skills. So if you feel like my kiddo is not there yet, none of our kids are there yet. There's a range where our kids might fall, but they are all working on these skills. And I would even argue, even though those parts of my own brain have fully developed, I'm still working on honing the skills that my brain is capable of utilizing. So remember, emotional regulation and social skills really have to do with how much can my child tolerate a given feeling? How much can my child pick up on cues from their peers and their teachers? And do they understand the impact that they have on the greater context of the people around them based on what they say or what they do? That's very sophisticated and is, again, going to take a long time to understand. But if we were talking about in the kindergarten classroom, what are some basic markers for success? We want to see your child throughout kindergarten learning how to wait patiently for their turn, especially when it comes to speaking. We want to practice also listening rather than just waiting for their turn to say what they want. We want to make sure that they can follow basic directions. Can they follow 2 or 3 or 4-step processes without having to be guided every step of the way? They should be able to communicate with adults and peers alike. And we want to see them seeking out friendships with those peers. Again, this is going to be a range of readiness and also a mix of personality. So don't feel like if your child doesn't meet these exact criteria, it doesn't mean they're not ready. It just means this is what we're going to be working on in preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade to really set them up for success. Because if you think about it long term, when we're looking at the long game here for our kids, if you don't understand how to move about within the classroom setting to know when is the right time to be talking, what's the right thing to be talking about right now, when should I be listening and paying attention, how do I approach someone I've never met before, but I'm interested in getting to know better? So these are skills that are going to play out and be absolutely paramount as our children get older. So now's the time that they're going to be practicing and really solidifying those skills. So right now, what could you be doing to encourage your child in developing positive relationships with peers and adults? And also instill in them the belief that they can figure out how to resolve conflicts with their peers, how to navigate social situations like introducing themselves, or how to take turns with someone else. Those are things that you can do in your everyday lives, whether you're out playing on the playground or you've taken the kids to the library or the coffee shop. Just do what you can to help them grow their confidence in meeting new people, in having conversations with them. And especially on the playground, this is a great place for them to learn how to navigate taking turns and resolving conflicts that inevitably come up on the playground. Now, I give you, again, specific ones that you can work on inside of that checklist. You can just grab it at momlifehandbook.com/kindergarten. I'll link it in the show notes below as well. So let's talk now about self-help and independence skills. I think that this is probably the most overlooked aspect of kindergarten readiness. I think that our kids really go from either being at home with mom or a caregiver in the small home setting, or they're in preschool where the ratios are smaller as well. So usually you see like one teacher for every 10 kids. That is vastly different when we move into kindergarten, where you might have class sizes from anywhere up to 30 kids with one teacher, or where they're in the lunchroom and there's, one supervisor for the entire kindergarten class. Our children inherently have to be able to do more for themselves because there's just not enough time or capacity for the adult in the room to help every single child. So this self-help aspect of your child's readiness is going to be really helpful. So doing things like being able to put on their own shoes and jacket is a great starting point. Knowing how to zip and unzip their backpack, understanding how to open and close their snack containers, their lunch boxes. If you send yogurt, do they know how to open that themselves? Like, think through what they have to be able to do on their own. The filling a water bottle at the water station, like things like that, those really matter. And when you can help your child know how to do those before they're at school or as they're in their early months at school, you're going to see that that helps really boost their confidence in themselves and will actually prepare them to be willing to try new things and not really worry about like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, because they've already built a strong foundation in seeing that actually I can do things that feel hard for me, right? And they build that resilience along the way. So making sure that your child is really able to do those things independently is important. And then with that, when it comes to that self-help aspect, do they understand how to advocate when they can't do something for themselves? So if they need help buttoning their pants after they went to the bathroom, that's okay. They just might not have those skills yet. What can they do in those situations? Are they comfortable with asking a grown-up for help? Again, your kiddo's going to work on this all year long, but if pick one or two things that you feel like would be some low-hanging fruit that you can help them be successful at now, that's going to really just help them feel more comfortable and at ease when they get to that setting and they are expected to be able to do these things on their own. And just remember, the teacher understands you've got kids coming from all sorts of backgrounds and settings, and they just all take a while to get used to what the norm is in the classroom, and they pick up quickly and adapt way faster than you'd ever expect. Okay, now when we talk about characteristics of academic readiness, please remember we are not talking about the actual skills they have themselves, but these are the characteristics or qualities of a child who's ready to receive the learning opportunities. So do what you can to foster your child's curiosity. Our kids are innately curious. So what can you do if they are really into unicorns or they're really interested in basketball? What can you do to just let them soak up whatever that interest is in and learn more about it and become an expert in it? We want to see our children initiating learning. So any opportunity you have there, snatch it right up. And with that goes persisting when problem solving. I feel like this is such a tricky one for us as parents. It's hard to see our kids struggling, and it is a knee-jerk reaction to do what we can to remove the barriers, to remove the frustration, to help them get to the end result with less resistance, right? But when we do that for them and on their behalf, we are preventing them the opportunity to develop that intrinsic grit, that persistence to see a problem through. And honestly, if there were any life skill that I'd want any child to walk out of school with, it would be that they are confident in problem solving even when it's hard. So if you see your child struggling to get their shoes on in the morning and you have an extra 30 seconds to spare, just count for yourself. Give yourself a pause and see what they can do in those 30 seconds. And then if they're still struggling, maybe you give them a tip of something you would try if you were helping them, or instill in them a vote of confidence. Hey, I can see this is really hard, and I'm really proud that you've been sticking with this. I see how hard you're working at this. I believe you can do this. Show them that you notice the effort. The effort is what matters. It is not the end result. And if we can do more to tolerate our own discomfort with our kids having to struggle, our kids will win every time, every single time. So do what you can to instill that persistence in our children. Allow for them to be good problem solvers, and they will succeed. Other qualities of academic readiness include having a level of comfort with expressing themselves creatively. You have to be a creative thinker in the classroom. And that isn't just talking about in art class. We're talking about in writing, in coming up with theories around why a certain character acted a particular way in a story. Let your child express themselves creatively. Even if it's not how you'd express yourself, it is going to help them feel comfortable with sharing new ideas that might not be widely accepted by the rest of their class. But that is so important. We want our kids to feel comfortable with expressing themselves without judgment. So if they can start with that here at home, then they're going to be more willing to take those risks in the classroom as well, which ultimately the payoff is there. We want kids who aren't going to just try to look for what the right expected answer is. We want them to really be independent thinkers. So creative expression is an extension of that. And then lastly, physical development, motor skills. These are things your kid's been working on for years and they're going to continue to work on. But things to keep in mind are, what can you do to help your child get more comfortable with using scissors in order to cut paper? Do they know how to open a glue stick or untwist the cap on a glue bottle? Are they gripping and holding onto a pencil or a crayon in order to write or draw? So believe it or not, setting out a coloring page is actually incredibly supportive to your child because they're practicing not only holding on to something, but then using that tool in order to complete a task. And I've seen so many kids who just don't have the stamina when it comes to that grip and being able to persist through a writing task because their hand is just so tired. So making sure that they're really strengthening their hands while doing that is so important. Making sure your child can independently use the bathroom, giving them opportunities to practice kicking and throwing a ball. And another really big one is being able to visually discern. So bringing out any jigsaw puzzles that you have, or doing those, remember those highlights hidden picture magazines? Like any of those you can have, just so that they're picking out, differences in how a shape is cut and how it would fit together, or this piece of the puzzle is shaded a little differently than the one I'm looking for, or picking out that hidden image in the sea of all these other objects. Those are going to be so important to your child's overall physical participation in whether it's participating in an activity in the classroom or taking care of themselves or being prepared for their learning, whether they are doing writing or they're cutting and gluing or making sure that they can be visually perceptive when it comes to telling the difference between a Q, a P, and a B. These all matter, and they are not skills. None of these are skills that they're going to learn overnight. They are ones that they are going to need repeated exposure to and practice with. And the more that you can supplement their exposure to these skills in the classroom by also focusing on them at home, the more solidified those skills will be for your child and the more quickly that will be accomplished for them. I hope that this has helped to redefine kindergarten readiness for you, that you have a deeper understanding of, yes, it would be great if your kid had some academic skills going into kindergarten. Of course, that will always benefit them, but truly, it doesn't matter. They're going to be spending their days learning those skills. What matters is their availability to that learning. How can they walk into that school building and be prepared to take on the day because they have the soft skills that really set them up for success in learning the hard skills of kindergarten? Be sure to grab that checklist. Whether you are a year away from kindergarten or your child has already headed into first or second grade, I am guessing that there are a few skills that you still need to work on. I know my second grader is definitely still working on these skills, but I have loved seeing how far that they have come from the time that they were in preschool and heading into kindergarten and where they are now. I am telling you, it takes years for these skills to be solidified. But if you have a little bit of a roadmap of what it is that they're going to need to really solidify in those 3 years, you're really setting your child up for success by knowing exactly where you can supplement at home. So be sure to grab that at momlifehandbook.com/kindergarten. And hey, if you're sending your little one off to kindergarten for the first time this year, just breathe. Take it one day at a time. Soak up all these last days at home with your little one that you might have before they start kindergarten. Get those extra hugs and kisses. And I want you to also feel proud of them for being at this point where it really is the beginning of something so new for them and such a big part of what they will remember about their childhood. And that's exciting. It's also bittersweet. I remember after we dropped Stella off for her first day of kindergarten, that day got me. I didn't feel that way about Theo going to kindergarten, but for her, I was like, this is it. Like, we don't have kids in preschool anymore. Like, a big chunk of our lives as parents, like that chapter of our lives is closed. It's done. So, if you're feeling sentimental, lean into it, embrace it, appreciate what you've had, and be excited for what's to come. I feel like the more we can be present in every moment and feel all the feelings, the more we're able to support our children and also live our lives to the fullest. So lean into all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly cries, all of it. It's beautiful that we get to experience that whole range of emotions. So wishing you and your child the biggest success in the school year ahead. And if there's anything else that you'd like to talk about or hear about on this podcast about school or education, academic readiness, I'm a teacher over here, so I've got a thought or two about it. Just let me know, leave a review. Let me know what you liked about this episode and what you'd like to see more of as it relates to education. I'd love to dive into those topics with you. And as we wrap up this week's episode, remember, mom life is complex, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Here's to leading with purpose and intention as you simplify mom life in the week ahead.